Trials of a Royal Guard. By Ansel. Chapter 22. Move forwards. Rain struck and bounced off my armor as I stood in the muddy field. Black clouds had long since blocked out the sun. How long ago that had happened I wasn't sure, but it must have been hours. For all I knew, it was the middle of the night, and all I knew was I didn't care. I picked up the pace, trotting faster. It was a bad idea to stay where I was. The oozing terrain clung to my hoof guards, pulling against me as I moved. The effort it took was slowly wearing me out. From behind, I heard them again. Loud, cackling mares and the sound of hooves galloping closer. They were coming and I was in no shape to defend myself. It was a struggle to move on, but I did. There was a stone rise ahead. If I could reach it, my hooves would be free of the strangling mud. Then I could escape. Little night, your coat's so bright. With little warning, the heavy rain shifted from falling straight down to battering my face. It smelled of iron and stung my eyes. Without being able to see clearly where I was going, my forehooves slipped and I fell face first into the muck. As I scrambled to get up, one of my hoof guards came free, revealing my blood-caked hoof. Crippled night, soul as black as night. No! I howled, pushing myself up and galloping forwards. Thunderous hoof falls drew closer and closer from the rear, filling my ears and causing them to ring. I looked over my shoulder and started to panic. Two onyx mares were gaining on me, their wispy, pale manes trailing freely in the wind. Flames spilled from their vacant, blind eyes, but somehow I knew they were looking at me. Wherever they stepped, fire erupted, their hooves blazing. All I could do was struggle while it seemed clear that the bloody rain and mud were no challenge for them. They both lit their horns and lowered their heads to aim at me. Evil night, how many bled? A tendril of flame sprang from each of their horns and wrapped around my hind legs, burning them mercilessly. I bucked and struggled but I couldn't break their grasp. As I screamed in pain and terror, they dragged me towards them. Let go! Let me go! They pulled me closer and closer until I was near enough to hear them clearly. Do not fear, little knight, soon you'll be like us. Serve the nightmares. With what little energy I had left, I rolled over on my back and swung at the nearest mare. My hoof caught her right in the muzzle. Pain exploded along it from the force of the blow, but when my vision cleared, the mare hadn't even budged. Dread night, you'll serve until you're dead. Slowly, my dragoon helmet floated towards me. Please, don't, as the helmet started to slide into place, lightning arched through the sky, illuminating the whole field. The mares' heads quickly shot up, looking in the direction of the rise I'd tried to reach. I struggled to turn that way, too, but it was difficult with the helmet halfway on. At least until it was ripped free by some kind of white bird. Begone! Silent! No! I struggled against the tendrils holding my hooves. They'd somehow gotten to my shoulders. Silent, wake up! You're screaming! I pushed away from the tendrils. This time they came off easily. Then I fell. Crystal's head appeared over me. Silent, are you okay? Are you awake? Crystal? Why was she here? Where was I? This looked like the floor of my old bedroom. I glanced at my hooves. They were clean. I wasn't in armor. My heart was racing. Nightmares. Yes, you had a nightmare. No, nightmares. Okay, you had nightmares. It's okay, Silent, you don't look hurt. Why don't you climb back into bed? I'll pet your mane. That was a tempting offer, but the floor also seemed like a fairly good place to stay. I wonder if this was why Tumble had slept under the bed. Crystal reached her hoof down to me. I took it. It was warm. It was comforting. Carefully, I climbed back into bed and she stroked my mane. We should go see Luna. Okay, I whispered, half suspecting I already had. You'll be okay. Tumble got through it, you will, too. Okay. Thunder Tumble hadn't done what I had, but I'd just have to trust Crystal. If I couldn't trust her, I couldn't trust Annaponi. The sun had barely risen when Crystal and I trotted through the main gates of the palace complex. I didn't recognize any of the guards at the entry points, but they all seemed to know me. So many of them had shaken my hoof after patting me on the back. It was weird. No pony had so much as bothered to check if I still had an active pass. They all just waved us through. The security was lax. What if the griffins attacked? Attack the palace? Really? I guess that was a pretty stupid notion. Things were different here. The guards here didn't get attacked. They didn't have to look out for ambushes. They just had to keep the citizens out of secured areas. There were less guards than normal, though. We'd always had more when I was here. Had they sent so many to Nordenver that other units were understaffed? Why weren't there guards at all the interior doors off the main rotunda? Are you nervous? Crystal whispered as we trotted down the central palace hall. Hey! You look nervous. Did I? Oh, just assessing for threats. Crystal stopped. I took 4 more steps before stopping too and looking back at her. Silent, there aren't any threats here. You're not going to, what? To do what? I asked. She shook her head. Never mind, it was just an odd thing to say. There aren't any threats here. Come on. From the core of the palace, we made the turn into Princess Luna's wing. It was larger than I remembered. Perhaps a third round of renovations? When we got to the first checkpoint manned by the house guard, I was pleased to see a familiar face, Div. Surprise and shock crossed that face before it shifted to a big grin. I'd heard you were back, sir, but I didn't want to get my hopes up. Me, too, I chuckled. Although I was only half kidding. Can I see the princess? He looked down at his clipboard and asked with practiced care, do you have an appointment? No, well that sucks for the next pony that does. I think you still know the way. I sure hope so. I took 2 steps forwards but Div reached a hoof to lightly touch my chest. Sir. I apologize. You can go, but we do a little more checking these days. It's not personal. My head tilted. No problem, but what do you mean? Div cleared his throat. You're in uniform, so I just need to pat you down for small weapons and then look under your wings. Mrs. Wishes, you're fine, I can see you're not armed. He didn't start. He just looked at me, waiting. An appreciated show of respect. The sad thing was, as odd as it made me feel, I respected it. I'd almost brought a dagger with me. Habit. I nodded at him firmly. Do your duty, Div. I lifted both of my wings and stood still while he checked me over. He was diligent as he looked under each wing, taking care with the ruined one. Then he started patting my uniform in various spots. The last bit of the check was more of a hug. Actually, it was a hug disguised as a pat down. That was okay, too. You're set, sir. I hope when you're done you'll consider stopping by the squad room. There are a lot of ponies here that would like to see you in a less formal setting. That would be nice. We'll catch up then, I replied before trotting into the area of the palace that was designated for Princess Luna. All in all, the designers had kept the decor of the palace the same, tall columns, stained glass windows, white stone. The accents just heavily relied on blue, purple, and evening themes. By comparison, Princess Celestia's wing was predominantly colored gold and blue. It was a nice contrast, but I'd always preferred being in Princess Luna's wing. Of course, I was also incredibly biased. As we walked down the hall towards the princess's quarters, all of the house guards stood to attention. That was perfectly normal, but when they did it now there was an extra level of polish and respect. Most of these ponies I'd known for my whole career, and to their credit, they all kept their positions. That didn't stop Harvest Moon and Cloudlands from grinning widely when we approached the large set of double doors that marked Princess Luna's private office. "Sir," they both said with a polite nod of the head. "We're here to see the princess." "Though I've been invited back to the squad room later," I replied. Harvest smiled. "Yes, sir, that sounds good." He knocked twice, waited a second, and then opened the doors. "Princess, Mrs. Wishes, and Major Knight to see you." "Send them in," the princess called excitedly. "After you," Crystal said teasingly. I took a deep breath. For some reason, my stomach was quivering with nerves. That was okay, nerves were okay. I drew myself up to my full height and walked through the door. Princess Luna was standing in the center of the room, staring my way. She looked relatively the same as the last time I'd seen her, though probably a little taller. Perhaps she'd grown more in power. Her teal eyes looked wiser and, in a way, sadder. Even though it was clear she was elated, I could sense there was a weariness surrounding her. She took 2 steps towards me. "Little stallion." "Hello, princess," I replied as professionally as I could. This felt awkward. We'd been apart for so long and I hadn't left on the best of terms. I'd made some pretty poor decisions. We'd also made some poor ones together. Then she took responsibility for them all. She took a few more steps towards me. My hooves took me a few towards her. Then, before I knew it, they hurried the rest of the way so I could wrap my forelegs around her in a tight embrace. Whatever confused feelings that were between us before didn't seem to matter. The princess seemed ill-content to just hold me similarly. Her large, elegant wings enveloped my whole body as she crushed me against her chest. "You're home," she whispered. I nodded eagerly, rubbing my cheek against her coat. I'd missed her so much. I'd been a fool to ever leave her guard. This is where I should have been, at home with my wife and my princess. My wife, oh. Luna. She asked as she nuzzled between my ears. "Crystal is here, too." The grandiloquorn's head lifted and she chimed, "Oh. Crystal wishes, my apologies." Yes, well, I recognize that he is your husband, but for the moment I claim royal privilege." From over my shoulder and outside the wings, I heard Crystal start to giggle. "Well, far be it from me to stand between the princess of the night and her knight." Princess Luna huffed. "That is a work of fiction and you know it. My love for Silent Night is strictly platonic. And you wonder where I received my inspiration, my dear princess?" My ears perked up. Since when had Crystal gotten so comfortable with the princess? "There is plenty of me to go around," I said, muffled against Luna's chest. Princess Luna nodded and held me a bit tighter. "Your point is made. If you'd have a seat but for a moment, I would very much like to hold my knight a bit longer." Crystal cheerfully replied, "Of course, princess." The princess's attention turned back to me. "You have been processed? Sessions set up, professionals arranged? We have invested heavily in the care of soldiers returning." "Yes, princess. And you will go see them?" That was more of a statement than a question. "Yes, princess. And you will return to Canterlot permanently?" "Would I? Didn't I have a job protecting the governor?" "Probably not, actually. That wasn't a post you could leave open 2 years. I'll need a job. In time. I will see to it you are stationed in Canterlot once you decide what you want to do." Idly, I nosed at her chest, thinking about that concept. Isn't that an abuse of power? A small one, and Minister Sombra knows of my fondness for you. He'll concede to my demands. After all, he is from somewhere behind me. There was a thunderous crash. It was the sound of doors being slammed open followed by armored ponies colliding. Perhaps in the reverse order? I stiffened in surprise and Princess Luna's wings went up. What is the meaning of THIO? She grinned a bit. I turned around to find Miley hooves laying just inside the door, all four of her legs splayed out. Sunny Day was piled on top of her, similarly off her hooves. Mountain Stone, for whatever reason, was on top of them both, eyes closed. Sergeant, if you don't get off of me this instant, I swear I'll transfer you so far north of the Crystal Empire you'll be able to make ice cubes by crying. Sunny gasped. Her yellow coat, fiery orange mane, and golden armor stood out against the dark coats and armor of my previous subordinates so that I could actually tell where she was in the heap. All due respect, ma'am, if you don't get off my bladder, this floor is going to turn into a slip and slide, Miley squealed while flailing her hooves. Mountain just grunted and slowly rolled off to the side, landing with a thump. He still looked dazed. Sunny scrambled off of Miley and brushed herself off. Well, pardon us, princess. We were just listening outside the door. I mean looking for trouble outside the door. We were outside the door. Princess Luna finally let me go but rested her hoof on my back when I turned to face the calamity that used to be crack house guards. I see. And while you were outside the door, what happened? Miley pointed an accusatory hoof at Sunny. She tried to push me out of the way so she could look through the keyhole. Sunny gasped, traitor! Insubordination! The little brown mare scrambled up onto her hooves and glared at Sunny. Pushy, bossy officer! Mountain groaned a little and slowly got up. He settled himself between the mares and waved at me. Welcome back, sir. Thank you, Mountain. Miley was already scrambling over the big, grey stallion, trying to get at Sunny before turning to me. Oh, right. Hi, Silent Night. Hi, Miley. Sunny trotted right over, peering at me curiously. Azurite said you were home. I said she was full of cake. I guess I owe her an apology, and, coincidentally, a cake. We had a bet. Her eyes narrowed briefly and she idly swatted over my head a moment before looping her hooves around me. Hey! How come she gets to hug him first? Miley cried before coming over and hugging me, too, pressing her side against Sunny as if trying to edge her out. Sunny wiggled back, also bumping Miley. It was nice to be loved, but at the moment the kind of love was a bit overwhelming and certainly confusing. Friend mares should not be wiggling up against me. It was about that time that I realized some pony was giggling uncontrollably. Through the various hugs I looked over to see my beautiful wife holding her belly. I started to chuckle. This was ridiculous. Ridiculous and perfect. I looped a hoof around each of them and said, "It is nice to see you both. Now that your careers are over, we'll be able to spend more time together." Miley poked at my nose. Princess Luna wouldn't fire me. Right, princess? Probably not. See, probahe. Princess Luna softly laughed and finally shifted back up onto her hooves. She made her way over to sit next to Crystal and sighed. Well, it is good that some things can get back to normal. Is this normal? I asked. Sunny leaned back and nodded. Yeah. The palace has been a little weird without you. And don't get me started on when Azurite was over there. Literally nothing happened. Every day was just bland. Soren and I just, exercised and went to work. Miley nodded. Totally bland. I didn't even break anything. Runic stopped blowing things up. All he ever does is work on making stronger and stronger armor. Isn't it being peaceful a good thing? No, the mares said in unison. It's been so dark and dull, Sunny complained. Mile agreed, yup. Nothing fun. Just, war. Now you're back, though. Things will be great. Maybe stuff will happen. Mountain Stone grunted in agreement. Princess Luna cleared her throat. Let us hope the stuff, as you say, is mundane and harmless. Such as dyeing my coat golden. Now, as I believe I am still CO ruler of this kingdom, I'd like for every pony that isn't Silent Night and Crystal wishes to leave for a bit. We have some catching up to do. Then I'll send them out to play, schedules permitting. Oh. Of course, Princess, sorry, Princess, Miley squeaked before backing up. She bumped into Mountain, who started backing up, too. See you later, Silent. Sunny chirped before trotting out, shutting the doors with her magic. From the other side, it sounded like some pony knocked over a suit of armor. I just shrugged and went over to the seating area. I settled on the couch opposite of the mares. The princess smiled and looked at me. If it wasn't obvious, you were missed. I haven't seen them act so foolishly in a while. It was heartening. That is good. I think. That was about as unprofessional as it gets. Still, I'll go see them all when we're caught up and I'm done with all of my appointments for today. I have appointments every day now. Indeed you do, and you'll be keeping them or Radiant Orchid will hunt you down. Along those lines of adjusting to your new life, where will you and Crystal be living during this time of transition? Crystal looked up and smiled, in his old quarters. Winterspear pretty much stays with Iridescence and Dot. Princess Luna lightly set her hoof on her chin. Is that really fitting for an army major and a famous author? Army major? Not for long. I cleared my throat. I'm not going to stay in the army. As soon as I finish my recovery program and it is time for my next assignment, I'm going to use my right of return back to the guard, or retire if for some reason I can't. The princess and Crystal both looked at me in shock. Silence fell over the room. Awkward, uncomfortable silence. Finally, Princess Luna nodded. I understand. Forgive me for assuming you'd stay with the army. You're still a major, however, and she is still a famous author. There must be quarters fitting for your station in life. Plus, now that you're back you'll, perhaps, want foals. Crystal's cheeks flushed and I sputtered, I just got back. Luna pumped a forehoof across her chest. No time like the present. You'll need a bigger home for the foals to roam around in. Especially the Pegasus ones. Perhaps you should come live in the palace. I held up my hooves. No, nope, no thank you. I really appreciate that offer, but I think Crystal and I need a little space. Luna shook her head. No, that is what I just explained, you need more space. Crystal giggled. Well, the alicorn and I looked at her. Well, what? I asked. There is this house I've kind of been looking at, it is really cute. I mean, it was really cute. It needs a lot of work, but I kept finding myself walking by it, thinking about when you'd come home. We should all go see it. Princess Luna nodded. Yes, we should go see it. Right now. My brow raised. Princess, don't you have duties to attend to? A kingdom to help run? Appointments you expect me to attend? The alicorn frowned and poked her lips out. Now I remember what it is really like having you here. Fine, we'll go see it later. Later is good, Crystal replied, giggling behind a hoof. That purchased me a moment's reprieve. House hunting with the princess sounded overwhelming. The fact that Crystal was house hunting was overwhelming. With a quick glance up at the princess's clock, I realized it was almost 10 already. That meant it was time to officially start day 1 of my reintegration. Okay, well, I need to go. I have therapy soon and if I'm late, Mindful Soul will be upset. Can I leave Crystal here so you can fill her head with ideas that will all probably end horribly for me? Princess Luna got up, nuzzled my cheek, and nodded. There was never any other possibility. Lovely. I kissed my wife goodbye and looked to the princess. Thank you for stopping my nightmare last night. Her ear flicked in confusion. Stopping your nightmare? I cannot take credit for that. Long ago, you asked me to protect others instead of you. Were you to be freed of it, it was not my doing. Oh, well, thanks anyway. I trotted on my way. Being back was weird. Really, really weird. First, life was on hold, and now every pony just wanted me to get back to it. Back to it as if I'd been living it for the last 2 years. That felt like a huge order. Hopefully Mindful could help me with that. Author's note. A bit of a silly ending, but I've been eager to put a bit more comedy in. Getting back to the old SK/Luna misunderstandings. Of course there was that dream though. Have fun parsing that. If you are enjoying this story, please consider taking a look at Crystal and Maya's website quillenblade.com for extra content such as mini stories, an Ask Us form to submit questions, responses to said questions, and special rewards for the awesome folks who support our Patreon. End author's note.